We're 10 practices in and 20 days away from Notre Dame. I wouldn't say Mario Cristobal is satisfied, but he does seem pleased with Miami's progress.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, if there is such a thing. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Miami Hurricanes radio network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I mentioned 20 days away. We're going to talk with our special guest about what Miami versus Notre Dame means, what it used to mean and what it should mean to this day. We'll take a look at Miami's defense 10 practices in, Carson Beck's progress so far, and what's been happening out there on Green Tree. And honestly, nobody better to talk to than former Miami Hurricanes team captain and color analyst on the Hurricanes radio network. Don Bailey is nice enough to join us. DBJ, I know you spend about as much time at practice as Mario Cristobal does. What's the grind been like out at Green Tree so far?
You know, Alex, the thing is that I've been more impressed with this year than in the past is the energy level through the entire practice. And you can see that Coach Cristobal's system, the thing that he talked about when he took the podium to be announced as head coach at the University of Miami, you could start seeing his vision come true. They're a bigger team. They're a more physical team. He always has put a high mark on conditioning and strength training. You're starting to see all that pay off. And in reality, they're passing the eye test. You know, I'll never forget when Miami went up to play Alabama in the Peach Bowl, I don't know, half a dozen years ago, and Alabama had the better team off the bus right away. And that's no longer the case at the University of Miami. Coach Cristobal has the sizes that he wants. He has the times that he wants, and he slots the players accordingly, and he recruits to his model. And I think that's the biggest thing, you know, from when he took over to today is now you're looking like a national championship team. You've got the skill level where you want it to be, even though it's not as experienced as you want, but you've got the speeds and the sizes and everything that comes with it.
You know, I was watching, by the way, great job. You talked with Coach right after the scrimmage on Sunday, and I don't know, he characterized it, Don. Am I correct in saying at the top of the show, he seems pleased with the progress, but he's certainly not satisfied to this point with about 3 weeks to go against Notre Dame?
I would almost. I don't think I've ever met a coach or really a business owner that's ever pleased with the progress. It's always progress in motion. I think he has an understanding of where they're supposed to be as far as install goes, as far as the conditioning goes, as far as players starting to be defined, as far as first team, second team, third team. I see that is falling into place, and I don't believe that there's any reason to think that Miami is behind in any category. So I think that's where he's pleased. But satisfied or content never happens.
No doubt about that. Does it feel like it's been, I don't know, 50-50 is the right phrase, but how competitive has it been between the offense and the defense? I mean, the defense, Don, was an issue, especially down the stretch last year. We know Miami should be one of the best offensive lines in the country. Is the defense winning their share of battles in these competitive reps?
Yeah, they are. They're during the scrimmage time, during the 11-on-11, during practice, whether it doesn't matter what category, whenever they're blended together and going against each other, the defense is. And I have to tell you, you know, a lot of people don't realize this or even remember it, but, you know, back in the day or when Miami has their best teams, the defense has always been the most dominant. I mean, you used to go through spring practices and fall camps and you couldn't get a yard, you know, and it doesn't matter what era, whether it's Schnellenberger or Jimmy or Dennis or, you know, Coach Coker, all those championship years or during that period of time, defense was really the backbone in a lot of respect. Miami got a lot of publicity because of the quarterbacks and the offenses and the specialty players, but defense is now starting you see the climb. And I think really you have to credit Coach Heatherman and that he's such a great teacher. I've been able to spend some time in a meeting room with him and watch him clinic with other coaches, high school coaches. And one of the best things about him, of course, is his intensity, his attention to detail, and his ability to communicate. And, we hadn't even talked about the field. That's everything before you get on the field. And there he's a master. But everybody's going to be on the same page. Everybody's going to have an understanding. And the main thing is on defense specifically, you've got to have answers. And that's what's going to come quickly. I think the answers will be there, and they're also going to be very, very sound. Now, the best part is they're going to chase the football. They're going to go after the turnover. And I anticipate you will see a very sound but aggressive defense.
What are your opinions on some of the transfer defensive backs, Don? I was really impressed with the practices I got to watch with Jacoby Thomas, the safety out of Tennessee. He looks big and physical, a guy who transferred after spring. So we were seeing him for the first time these first 10 practices. Going back to the spring, Xavier Lucas is a guy who really jumps off the page. Ethan O'Connor's been practicing well. Talk about these guys.
Well, first of all, the new ones coming in are great, but OJ Frederick's got to be a guy for us. I mean, he's a guy that came in, didn't go through spring as a freshman, came in fall camp, and really day one looked like he was a starter, and he was. And so I think he's special. I mean, that's something, that corner spot you can build with him is very, very key. You mentioned Lucas. Lucas is going to be a big help. Poyser, the safety that came, is coming up a level, so to speak, from Jacksonville State. He's the guy that's going to have to fill in. And I'm right with you on Thomas. Thomas is a vocal guy. He's got experience. That a year playing in the Southeastern Conference at Tennessee always impresses me. I like getting guys that came from the Southeastern Conference because they've been in big games and they've seen big crowds and they've been through all the pageantry of college football. But I think overall they're still sorting through what's going to happen in that secondary. But if you remember a year ago, that was Miami. I can't speak for anybody else. If it was a year ago today, I had no idea what the secondary was going to look like. No one did. And it was a question mark really that remained through most of the year. I think after this week and going up at 10 days before Notre Dame game, this thing will be solidified. You may have some battles going on as far as down and distance guys and nickel, but I think it's going to get solidified, and I think it'll be improved.
Yeah, I mean, for Miami, the defense improving, it's paramount if they're going to have success this year and exceed, where they failed a year ago. But of course, for Miami to get to that promised land, Carson Beck needs to live up to our expectations. Let's talk about Miami's QB1 when we come back. Don Bailey Jr., Miami Hurricanes color analyst, former team captain, is nice enough to join us. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, the only ticket app that I use is Game Time, whether it's concert tickets to Miami versus Notre Dame. Guys, 20 days away, and the prices are going to keep going down the closer we get to kickoff. And we've all been there. You log in early, you wait forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. You ever wonder what your view is actually going to look like before you buy? The app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises. And folks, with Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay. There are no hidden fees. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. Don Bailey Jr., who's been a very good friend and mentor of mine when it comes to covering Miami for a long time, joins us here on Locked On Canes. All right, so DBJ, and of course Cam Ward on to the NFL, just had his preseason debut with Tennessee, looked pretty good.
Yes,
Number one overall pick. right after last season, Miami fans are wondering, okay, who are they going to replace Cam Ward with? They go out and get a guy who was the starting quarterback at Georgia for over 2 years, 24-3 record in the SEC, but there were some doubts with him coming off the elbow injury. I guess, Don, let's start with physically, because I want to make sure your opinion matches up with mine. Carson, physically, there are zero limitations, and the arm looks good, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, they did a great job in rehab. They did a great job in getting the surgery done early and getting him ready for this point. And he's on pace and he's ready to go. Unfortunately, Cam Ward came in January and moved into the building and had 8 months basically before camp started. He was able to go through a spring. He was there every day, all day, 7 days a week, and was throwing and working with the receivers and in the meeting rooms and communicating. Unfortunately, the physical side of it has not been available for Carson Beck. It's unfortunate, but the good news is he's been in the building. He's, at least on paper, was able to get a complete understanding, and as a walk-through and a stand-behind guy watching every play in the spring, he's got an understanding of the offense, and he's only going to get better. I see a difference from day 1 to day 7 on how he's picking it up and how he's progressing.
So, Art, talk to me about what stands out to you about Carson Beck as a quarterback and his style of play.
He understands the game. He's very technical in the fact that he understands how to get in and out of plays. He understands how to get into a run play from a pass play and vice versa. I've never seen him frozen with anything academically in the game. And he understands defenses. I think he can read the defense as well as anybody, and he should. I mean, he's going into his 6th year. He had 2 years, his first 2 years at Georgia. He's on a national championship team. You learn so much from that, plus the extra games, the extra preparation. And in reality, he was a snap away. So he has been used to preparing to being the guy. And then, as you mentioned, 24-3 as a starter in the Southeastern Conference. Georgia fans act like, okay, yeah, it's okay, it's all right that he left. 24-3. I'm not so sure I'm excited about a guy that is 24-3. And again, Southeastern Conference game, going to Alabama, going to Tennessee, dealing with the Gator, doing all of these big games, and he had a huge drop in what he had talent-wise from his junior year to his senior year. He lost a first and second rounder, guy at receiver and tight end, and that had an effect. But I think overall you have got a field general. He's a guy that understands it. He can get you in and out of plays, and he's got a ton of experience. And more importantly, I think he's been through a lot of preparation.
And let's talk about the young men he's going to be throwing the footballs to, Don, because, of course, a lot of different receivers from last year. Miami's top 4 guys from a year ago either moved on to the NFL or, in one case, player transferred to a different program. Now, I actually, and I tell this to people when I go out to practice, is like I'm pretty bullish on the talent Miami has at receiver, but it's mostly transfers and young guys who haven't played a lot at Miami yet. So what are you seeing from that group, and is anyone really standing out to you?
Well, Moore is the freshman. I think he's a guy that's a big body guy that's an outside target. And, with him, Alex, there's a couple things that you can't coach. You can't coach his size, you can't coach his speed, and you can't coach his quickness. And he has all of that. I think, he's going to eventually be a big part of this equation. The C.J. Daniels guy is another big body that Miami needed. He came in from LSU, had spent 4 years at Liberty, and it was a very successful year. Kind of a quiet year at LSU, but he was banged up a little bit. But I've seen him look very good at practice as well. And then Marion, the kickoff return guy, he seems like, on Sunday, he looks like he's able to start finding a groove as well. And, I don't want to leave Emory Williams out of this quarterback conversation. There's a lot of football games, Alex, to be played in a season now. You get to 12, then you hope you can get 13, 14, 15, whatever it may be. But if you ask me, I would tell you Emory Williams looks like he's made as big as an improvement as anybody on the field. I didn't want to just leave that untouched at the quarterback spot because
I'm glad you did.
You never know when he's going to have to come in and play, but he is a guy that I think unjustly was beaten up after the bowl game. If you go back and watch it like I do, he threw a touchdown pass, what should have been a touchdown pass to win, and the ball was dropped in the end zone. And, he was playing catch-up football when they're dropping 8 guys, and it's hard to make a play against that defense. But the guy that it was in that game compared to the guy that was there for media day and what I've seen every day in practice, this is not the same person. And Miami fans need to understand we're fortunate to have him here right now, and he very well may be the star of the future.
I'm glad to hear that, Don. I'm glad. Tight ends, DBJ. Elijah Lofton, he's going to get a lot more opportunities this year. And I like what I see from Alex Bowman, the transfer from Tulane.
I'm with you. Both of those guys, that's your 1-2 punch right there. I think it was key to get Bowman on the roster. He's an experienced guy that has size. And Lofton, I don't know if people realize just like what this guy can do. He may be the best football player on the roster. I would say, now, does that mean what does that mean when Don Bailey says that? That means he can play linebacker, he can play fullback, he can play running back, you can split him out, he can play. There's not anything the kid can't do, and he does it in a fashion where he owns that spot immediately. So wherever you put him, you're not putting him in to fill in, you're putting him in a spot to succeed, and I think he's great. And I saw Luka Gilbert make some plays at practice. He's turning into a very good blocker. He's a big-bodied guy, and they've done a phenomenal job. Coach Woodle has done a great job recruiting that room, and it hasn't stopped. And Lofton and Bauman and Gilbert and Schock and all those guys are going to help Miami because they usually play 3-4 tight ends throughout the whole season, and it's a big part of Shannon Dawson's offense. But more importantly, it was a big part of Carson Beck's offense at Georgia in the 2023 season.
Amen to that. Now, it wouldn't be a conversation with Don Bailey Jr. without talking about the offensive line. And let me start, Don, with your old position at center, James Brockermeyer, who he's a friend of the show now on Locked On Canes. We've interviewed Brock before. Miami has had now, this will be their third transfer starting center in 3 years. How is Brockermeyer fitting in so far, and what have been your impressions out there?
A+. He was a steal. Nobody talks about him because of the position he plays, but when I'm around the conversations and the coaching, nobody says his name. And what does that mean? That means he's doing everything right. He's not called out for anything. The guy hustles through the ball. He's got a great IQ. A football IQ. And he's just goes about his business. I think he's far more athletic than Carpenter was last year. Similar in a sense to Matt Lee. Matt Lee was a bit more verbal and a bit more aggressive, but Brock just does it in a quiet way. He comes from a family. His dad was a 10-year NFL guy, and he was recruited through Alabama and then went on to play at another spot after that. But I look at him, and he's allowing Miami to continue to take a step forward in the offensive line room. And I think that's, been a hyper focus of Coach Mirabal and Coach Cristobal. And he allows that line to be able to continue to grow. They don't have to cover him up. I think they can even expand the offense a little bit by the type of player he is than what they were able to do last year.
We're joined here by Don Bailey Jr. And when we come back, I got to pick DBJ's brain on Rueben Hurricane Bane. Bane is someone who is expected to bounce back in a big way this year. The national publications are taking notice, and DBJ haven't been a part of when Miami versus Notre Dame, when it was a real annual rivalry. We got to get his thoughts on that as well. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on Locked On Canes. So DBJ, last year was a tough one for Rueben Bain. He was injured, missed 4 or 5 full games, was playing through injury after that. He was still disruptive, but like the stats were down, people's feelings were down on Bain. But I noticed he's getting a lot of love heading into this season, DBJ. For what it's worth, all these national watch lists are putting Rueben Bain on there. So America is expecting him to bounce back. Are you expecting him to bounce back this year?
I am. The defensive line coaches are. The defensive coordinator is. Head coach Mario Cristobal and his parents are expecting it as well. Yeah, I do. And, he got dinged up against Florida. in game one last year, and it affected him. There's no doubt about it. And I think the best thing for Rueben Bain is that Akeem Mesidor is healthy. And who are you going to pick? I mean, he quietly, Alex, Mesidor has had a great camp. So you've got both those guys lined up on the edge, and it kind of makes it difficult. Who are going to sign a back to help with the double team? You're going to sign a tight end. You're going to slide. You slide one way, you got another guy coming the other. So I think they're a pair that are going to create a lot of problems. But Rueben Bain is still Rueben Bain, the same young man that came in, except he's a better version. His body fat's down. He's stronger. He looks far quicker than he has at any point in his career. Then he's just continuing to excel at that spot. And the best thing for him, and also for Maui-Noah, is they go against each other every day. You hear the saying Coach Cristobal repeats time and time again, iron sharpens iron, where those are two guys made out of iron. And I think, you're dealing with the best right tackle in the country, somebody who I think should be an All-American in Maui-Noah, and end up being maybe in University of Miami Hall of Fame one day, because he from day one, this guy started every single snap, and he doesn't make mistakes. But that's who goes against each other every single day, one-on-one, and they respect each other, but it's also made them both elite football players.
Don, you can't tell the history of Miami Hurricanes football without a lot of Miami versus Notre Dame in there. And they made that 30 for 30 documentary on the Catholics versus convicts several years ago. Whenever I talk to, Miami guys who go back to the 80s like you do, they'll usually say, like, when I ask who you hate most, it's usually Notre Dame, sometimes Florida, usually Notre Dame. What does the Miami versus Notre Dame rivalry mean to you?
Well, let's get it cleared up for a lot of folks, and well before the 80s. Number one thing on a list when they're there, if Florida's on the roster, you got to beat the Gator. I don't care who else is there. That's a tradition that Miami's got to beat Florida. That's it. Period. There's nothing to talk about. That's the number one game. Then 1A is, of course, Notre Dame, and for different reasons. Back in the day, it was the in-state rivalry. It had a lot to do with recruiting, and the Gator, always felt they had the edge over the Hurricane until they didn't, and they don't today. And now, but Notre Dame has always been mightier than thou when it came to the University of Miami, and it's a great feeling when you beat the Irish. It was one of the best games I've ever been to. Was a part of in 2017 when Coach Richt, led the Hurricanes to that national televised game where we put it on the Irish at Hard Rock. So that was a great one. But it's a rivalry. I mean, if people don't think that it is, then they're not a historian of college football. It's just not a Notre Dame Miami deal. It's a national deal. And I think that it's something that we're fortunate to play in. I'm glad we're playing them here. I don't care where we play them. I really don't. I just enjoy playing them. I enjoy the hype that comes with the football game. Now, that being said, they're one heck of a football team, right? I mean,
yeah.
They're now, let's not forget, they lost to Northern Illinois last year, and then lost. The next game that they lost was in the national championship game. So they had some tribulations last year, but ended up with a great season. And they're going to come in. They've got a very good head coach, and they recruit nationally as well as anybody in the country. And it's going to be interesting. And it's going to be interesting to see how the quarterback battle pans out on their side. They got two guys battling for the quarterback spot, and then they've got a running game that's equally as successful as anybody in the country. So it's going to be fun to see, and I'm excited about calling it.
By the way, Don, some of these Notre Dame fans have a really short memory, because I keep seeing them say, oh, going to Hard Rock Stadium, they don't have any fans, nobody shows up. Really short memories from these guys, because 8 years ago, when they came down to Hard Rock Stadium, people make their jokes about Miami attendance. That building, Don, was standing room only, and that was one of probably the loudest stadium I've ever been in my entire life. And this one's another night game coming up.
Yeah, I agree with you, Alex. I had to do an on-field presentation at halftime, and we're kind of secluded in the booth, and I come down, and then I walk out on that field, and I'm like, oh wow, this is different, because I've done that many times, and the electricity of that night It was beyond belief. And I mean, I was as proud of our Hurricane fans as I've ever been in my life, because that is exactly what Hurricane football is. And everybody has the memories of the Orange Bowl. Well, they more than duplicated one of the best outings that have ever been by the crowd, by the team, by the players that was in the Orange Bowl. And they brought it to Hard Rock that night. And they'll do it again. I got faith in my Hurricanes now. They're going to make it difficult on the Fighting Irish on the 31st.
Well, we always love catching up with Don Bailey Jr. You want to check him out. He's going to be on the call all season long, including Notre Dame at Miami, August 31st at Hard Rock Stadium. Want to make sure you check him out. Don Bailey Jr., thank you so much for the time, and any parting comments you want to send to all the Canes fans out there.
Canes fans, show up. You're a big, big part of it every single week. I know you're going to be there for Notre Dame. I know you'll be there for Florida. Don't forget the rest of them, because this team has worked hard. You've got a head coach that's from down here that played here that needs the support. And you just make sure you come out and support this team, because it's a great football team with a lot of fine young men on it. And they're putting in a lot of work to give you the kind of season that we're hoping for.
Don, thank you so much for the time, DBJ. We'll see you soon.
Anytime, Alex.
Don Bailey Jr. is the man. We thank him so much for joining us, and we thank all of you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. We'll be back later on today, an episode this evening. We'll have an exclusive interview with freshman defensive lineman Hayden Lowe, who's another one who's been performing very well at Canes camp so far. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Later today with Hayden Lowe. We'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. Oh, by the way, for your next listen, make sure you check out The Portal. Our pal Brian Smith does an awesome job taking you through all things transfer portal, NIL, and recruiting. We'll talk to you again on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.